Good evening, everyone. My name is Tone Face, and this is another edition of Tone's Market Analysis. Uh, Today is Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, November 16th. I'm sorry I was not able to make a video over the weekend. I was in Russia, though surprisingly, the internet was really good at hotels. I was surprised. It was getting much better speed than any hotel in America I've ever had. But I was just busy, and over the weekend I was in um, a city outside of Moscow, so it was a little more complicated. But yeah, so that was interesting. So speaking about Bitcoin over in Russia, we'll probably talk more about that on other podcasts. So let's get right into the markets. There's a lot to talk about, and I don't like these going on for too long. All right. So I almost never talk about the Dow Jones. I stick to the S&P 500. It's a broader index. I also care about the NASDAQ, mostly because I trade NASDAQ stocks. That's the majority of my trading. I don't really talk about my trading much. Maybe I'll do that one of these days. But I like talking about things I don't really trade that much. It gives me a completely unbiased view. This way, if I have a position on something, I'm not going to pray that it goes in my direction, and then I'm going to sway myself into talking about it that way. So I try to be as unbiased as possible as I look at these markets completely independently, once or twice a week. So the reason I pulled up the Dow Jones is because the Dow Jones is just on a tear. We had this line here, which was, I guess let's make it a round number, the 18,600. And, oh, don't want that. And we broke out. The Dow Jones really broke out to a new all-time high. And this is very, very impressive. But now we are a little overextended. We still haven't crossed yet, so there is some room. But as you can see, we are slowly starting to turn. We had a reversal candle. We had our doji. Love my dojis. And this happened on Monday. We had the doji. And this doji still hasn't been broken. We had a higher daily close, but not a higher intraday high. Those regular followers know I try to ignore intraday closes, but I kind of care when they're dojis and when they're tight candles. Otherwise, I try not to let an intraday high or low be a barometer, especially when the intraday is so far out of reach from the close. But when the intraday is near the close, then I take the intraday seriously. When the intraday is very far from the close, I take it a lot less seriously, and I care way more about the closing price. Okay, so what is this telling us? This is telling us that the strength is really in the biggest companies. I don't want to say this is a fear trade because it's hard to call it a fear trade when we're going for all-time highs. But the Donald Trump win definitely did a number on the markets. I personally expected a crash, a temporary crash, a big crash. We had a big crash, but it was so temporary. Even I didn't think it would be that temporary. It was literally a 12-hour crash in the middle of the night. So the U.S. markets were closed throughout the entire crash. So if you don't trade the futures, you didn't even notice it. But if you trade the futures, you either got killed or you missed out on a lot of gains, depending on which side of the market you were on. So this was just a massive rally, and I still think the markets will go up. However, we are overextended. And I'll jump to the S&P at this point because I'd rather use the S&P chart to talk about it. Those numbers are engraved in my head. The support numbers, the current numbers, the numbers I'm looking for to the upside. Those numbers just engraved in my head. The Dow numbers, I have to constantly look at the chart. But here's the S&P, and the S&P has not broken out to a new all-time high, and this is important. We have a see, this is one of those things where if you look at that candle, both the intraday high of 2193.81 and the close are fairly close to each other. So I take both of them seriously. So I am gonna take the 2193.81 seriously. And we have not broken out above that high yet. And I want to see a close above that high for another breakout. But this move has already been pretty massive. But what I'm still waiting for, I'm waiting for this overbought condition. And eventually the MACD will do it as well. So I am looking for that overbought condition, even though we are getting a little toppy, and this is a very interesting looking reversal candle. But I think there is a little bit more upside left in the S&P. Maybe not much, but a little bit more. Now, keep in mind, at no point am I expecting a big crash. I think we will break out to all-time highs in the near future. There might be a pullback. Let me do two scenarios here. We might get a pullback back to the 50-day, maybe back to the breakout area, and I guess then do one of these. This is kind of what I'm looking for. Let's make that one green. I am expecting like a breakout to a new all-time high to just get everybody confused and bullish, and then we're gonna have a correction. I don't know how far the correction will go. It's probably not gonna go below 2000, but it may. It may not even go below 2080, but it will probably, I'm guessing. But we need a little correction because I am not a bear, by the way. I'm a bull. I'm a huge stock market bull. I've been a stock market bull for years. Those that watched my live presentations in Mexico in February of 2015 would have heard me say gold will go down and the stock market will go up. Those that watched me say it a year later in February of this year, they would have heard me say stock market up, gold down. And those that will watch me talk about markets in Mexico again this February will also hear me say stock markets will go up and gold will probably go down. I've been saying this for years. I don't see myself changing that stance, but there's 3 months to go, so you never know. I reserve the right to change my mind. But we'll talk about this correction as it develops. But I'm actually going to delete this because I still want to see another high. It's possible that this correction can start tomorrow, but I think there is a little bit more life in this market left. I think this was absolutely great. The fact that we finally reached an oversold condition. We missed the oversold. I'm going to make this yellow. We did not hit an oversold condition here. We did not hit an oversold condition here. We finally hit an oversold condition there. And at neither of these points did we ever reach an overbought condition. We stayed under. I really like the RSI. I find the RSI very, very useful. And I would like to see this overbought condition to then scare the markets, to then drive the markets to new all-time highs. So that's kind of my view on the S&P 500. Just a glance at the weekly to see if we're missing anything from the daily. Probably won't be much of a difference. Yeah, there's not much here. The MACD is still going down but reversing. The RSI still has room to the upside. We could break out. I am expecting 2200 to be broken. Maybe not by much, but broken. And then there's going to be some kind of a scare. I don't know what's going to happen. Something politically. I understand that Trump won, but those that have been reading, between the lines should have seen the letter that the Democrats are writing to all the delegates, trying to convince them that they don't have to vote for Trump. All of the electoral votes, they can still go to Hillary, and then Not sure what the penalties are if those people go against their state duty and not vote for the person their state has elected. And the Democrats are saying they will pay these fines. Just read between the lines. I mean, until I see Trump sitting in that chair, um, alive and well, it's I will be I don't want to say skeptical is a bad word. I will be cautious. Like I try and I'm still like everybody else. I'm still like a little bit in shock that he actually won, even though I was expecting him to win. But um, I won't believe it until he's actually sitting in that chair. There's 3 months to get there. I think January 20th or something is when he actually gets to step into the Oval. And when he does, then those that voted for him can finally breathe a sigh of relief. But till then, let's take it day by day. The Nasdaq has been weak, so the Nasdaq hit an all-time high back in October. And before people correct me, I'm pretty sure the Nasdaq came closer to 5,000 back in the year 2000. But that's somewhat irrelevant to me. And even if you inflation adjusted, the Nasdaq is nowhere near its all-time high back then. But the 5,000 price of the Nasdaq back in 2000 was about 90% bullshit, which is why it fell 90%. And 95% of those companies that made it go all the way up there no longer exist. So I kind of scrapped that from reality. And the Nasdaq did hit a real all-time high just about 3 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And the Nasdaq has been weak, especially the leading stocks. The Netflix, even though it had a great earnings, Facebook had a good earnings and fell. Uh, uh, Apple was down. Amazon was down. Google was down. I mean, these stocks were down big, and these are some of the stocks that I kind of like to trade. But so that was weird when the Dow was having a 200 up day and Amazon is down like $40. That was the weirdest day I've seen in a while. But so Nasdaq's been weak, but the Dow has been strong. That extrapolating that into the future tells me that stocks have a really good. Stocks are looking good. So the Nasdaq will catch up. The Nasdaq might pull back down a little. Sorry, the Dow might pull back down a little bit. They will go back into somewhat of a parity. It's not normal that the Nasdaq falls 100 points and the Dow is up 200 points. That almost never happens. But will align again. The Nasdaq will go back up. The 50-day moving average is starting to turn to the downside. There will probably be a correction in the markets in the near future. And it'll be a small correction, not even a moderate correction. We're not going to fall 20%. We'll fall 10% at most. And then we're going to recover that 10% really, really quickly. I mean, my 401ks are still 100% stocks, and they'll probably stay that way. But I try not to give trading advice. This is just my view of the markets. You guys are on your own. Yeah, so the Nasdaq's just been weak, but the Dow is where the smart money is going. They like big stocks, and the Amazon and the Google, they'll recover. They'll be fine. Okay, so that's the stock market. Let's jump onto let's jump to gold. And oh man, so those that were in gold, those were short futures, and this happened to them, and they got stopped out. Sorry for your loss, but this is what happens on election day. And if your portfolio isn't liquid enough and you don't have the margin to handle something like this, then you might want to be careful having positions on days you know are going to be volatile, days you know for a fact are going to be volatile. And these are elections and interest rate announcements and the like. Okay, so let's see what we can draw here. So this was a big line for us right around here. I'll try and draw it somewhere in the middle. And why was it yellow? Well, I guess it's going to be all one color. Oh, I didn't do a split one. Okay, that's fine. We'll make it yellow. And here was the other one. So I'm sure I would have stated that 1250 was a very significant support line, just like I would have stated that. Oh, why did the vertical? About 1270 would have been an important line as well. But anyway, I'm not going to draw it. So once we fell below 1250, a huge floor opened up. And I think I was bullish gold to a point, but I also expected this trend line. I guess we'll do this. I also expected this trend line not to break. And by break, I of course mean on a closing level. And now we're about to have a def cross, which is bad. It's very, very bad for gold. The 50 is going to move under the 200, and the 200 will eventually turn to the downside. I'm bearish gold, guys. I mean, we're probably going to have a bit of a dead cat bounce here, back to the 1250 area. And if we get to the 1250 area and start to reverse, this could get ugly. There is really not much room there. I mean, I'm going to jump to the weekly chart in a second, but there's really not much room there. We do have, an oversold condition, so there's some room for a bounce, or we can just go sideways for a bit. We can also, I mean, I would not be surprised if we moved all the way into the cross. This is actually one of the trades that I like, is a bounce into the cross, which happens very, very often. Things fall prematurely, causing the death cross or a golden cross, and then things move into the cross before they take on their ultimate direction. So I'm pretty bearish gold here. Let's jump to the weekly chart and see if there's anything else there. Yeah, well, we're working on a reversal candle, but that's no biggie. The volume, I don't talk about volume much because it's usually not all that relevant. But I mean, that's significant. You can't really, hard to deny that volume spike, right? That week this is our biggest volume spike in 3 years. I mean, that's gotta be significant, no matter how you slice it. And since I'm drawing boxes here, what's a good box to draw? 1150. I really want to lower this. I would say this box is pretty significant from 1150 to 1200, and I just have this feeling we're going below it. I don't think gold is ready for upside yet. I think there's more downside, and there is really not that much support. We are now below both moving averages. There is some support at 1200 to 1210 area. There will be some support in the 1150 area, but it's weak. And now we're looking back at the lows, and I mean, there is no significant reversal here. There is some, right? I mean, here's my problem with this. Yeah, it caught some people by surprise, including me. I honestly thought gold was going lower at this point. I think I was making videos at the time on a different channel, but I really thought gold had more downside. Obviously, I was wrong in late 2015, but it took off to the upside, but it wasn't. I mean, people could have jumped on board. It wasn't. What's the word I'm looking for here? it didn't catch people by surprise. A lot of people jumped on board. Volume went up. That's not the way ultimate bottoms are made. Ultimate bottoms are made when people are scared to buy back in. Like if you look at what happened with the equity markets back in 2009, and when you look at what happened with oil when it fell all the way back to 20, how quickly it reversed, and back like 7 years ago when it fell down to 35 from 140, how quickly it reversed. So I would have won if I jumped back to the S&P. Again, if you would have had one of these like back in October of 2014 reversal, or something like this back in February of this year, these monster reversals that just quickly go to the upside after quickly going to the downside, I would have been way more optimistic about the long-term future of gold. But because it kind of stayed there in a box indecisively for what looks to be months, I never bought into the rally, and I always expected it to go back down. And since I'm not a believer in double bottoms, that only means one thing: either we quickly reverse to the upside in the next few weeks and make new highs above 1400 in literally in a matter of weeks or a month or two, or we go back down and make new lows around 1,000 or even lower. And right now I'm leaning to the downside. I mean, we'll see what happens, but as I look at this, um, I mean, there might be a bounce or two, but I don't know. I'm thinking lower. I know it's an unpopular position, but I'm thinking lower. All right. Silver. I haven't talked about silver in a while. It looks like silver is holding up a little bit better, but again, it has ultimately the same fate as gold. Just jump back on here. Actually, no. I'm gonna. Huh, that's interesting. Is this a weekly chart or a daily chart? Oh, it's my daily chart. Okay, that's why I'm not comparing apples to apples here. Okay, so on the daily chart, we just made new lows versus last month. Again, we're not even oversold on the RSI. We're about to get a def cross, and I think silver is going down as well. Let me just look at the weekly, so we're comparing apples to apples here. Yeah, it might actually be a little bit stronger than gold, but again, this was an awfully long time to at the bottom at 1362 was the low. We spent an awfully long time sitting there. That's not how ultimate bottoms are made, in my opinion. I think they are made swiftly and quickly to leave most people high and dry. And we did reach an overbought condition on the RSI, and now we're trending towards the oversold condition. So let's see what happens. I think silver has some more downside. Okay, next, oil. So if my memory serves me correctly, I believe I called a bottom in oil somewhere around here, expecting it to go back up. Obviously, I was early, and hindsight's 2020. This is a beautiful reversal candle, and it's a perfect reversal candle. We never really reached the oversold condition, and which is unfortunate, but the MACD is about to cross, which is good. We only spent 1 day, well, 2 days, I guess, under the 200 day. It's kind of similar to this incident where we spent like 3 days below the 200 day. I think oil has a bit of a bounce. I think the future for oil is also fairly weak. I think the world is removing its dependence from oil. I think there is an overproduction of oil, and the wars over oil in the Middle East are just stupid, as alternative energy is going to take over sooner than later, and probably sooner than later. So oil will have a bounce, but the ultimate future for oil is something like this. All those books by Stephen Lieb and some of those other people, claiming the end of the world because oil will go to $200 and no one can afford it and the world runs on oil. That view is complete nonsense. It's ridiculous. Um, uh, Years before we run out of oil, we will remove all dependence from oil. It's really a relic at this point. We have the knowledge and the technology to start to completely redo everything we do with oil to remove ourselves from oil. So the future of oil is bleak. If you're if you're looking out long term, 10, 20 years, oil might be one of the worst investments you can make. But again, that's just an opinion. I could be totally wrong there. But my view is the ultimate future for oil is very low. But for now, we can have a bit of a bounce. All right, the dollar. I also have a question since I'm live streaming this. Does the gold drive USD? Because they're inversely proportional. Does USD drive gold? Gold does not drive USD. Currency traders and bond traders couldn't care less that gold exists. However, since gold is priced in dollars, a rise in the dollar will cause a drop in the price of gold. Though in other currencies, it could actually be a rise. For example, if the euro starts to collapse, or, let me rephrase that, scratch that one. If the euro continues to collapse, then all of a sudden gold in euros becomes very, very expensive. But as the dollar goes up, gold in dollars may not change at all, or gold in dollars might actually drop in price. So if you have to pick which one drives the other, it is definitely the dollar will drive the price of gold. As the dollar goes up, gold usually comes down, and you actually see that happening right now. The dollar's been up and gold's been down, but they are minorly correlated, but on a longer term basis, they do have a life of their own. So let's talk about the dollar. The dollar has just been on a tear, and again, those that were trading currency during the election and this happened to them, sorry for your loss if you got stopped out. But again, this is why you need to have the liquidity to hold out through intraday trading and wait for the end of day close. You absolutely have to. Now, I don't fault anyone for exiting their positions intraday because they think that it will only get worse, and I'm guilty of that as well. And I've also jumped on board. But the best way to trade is to only trade a small fraction of your portfolio so that you could withstand the intraday the intraday swings in the market. Okay, so the dollar has been going up nonstop, and I think it's I think it's going to take a break. I mean, we're now back to overbought. Just look at what happened the last time we were overbought. I believe I expected it to pause over here. Again, I mistimed it a little bit. Paused a little bit higher. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 consecutive days of up moves in the dollar is really pushing it. We may have another day or two, but the dollar will correct down a little bit. So I am looking for, let's draw some arrows. I am looking for the dollar to take a break in the near future. How low would it fall? I don't know, but it's not going to fall too low. Maybe 99, maybe 98, maybe down to 97.50 to reach the 50-day moving average. Not that it's relevant. I just like looking at it. And after that, the dollar is going to go up. Also, don't forget the interest rate is going to be raised in December, and it's going to be raised several times over the next few years. Once the market gets used to it, this won't really be that big of a deal. But for now, it could cause some, strange moves in the market. Let's just glance at the weekly real quick. Oh man, this video is already going on a little longer than I expected, but yeah, so the weekly is, yeah, we're trying to break out for the third time. Third time is usually a charm. However, there's always a however. Let's remove this arrow now. However, because we had to go a long distance, because we went a long way to get there, I'm a little hesitant of breaking out. Now, if we had, for example, got stuck in this zone and then broke out to the upside from here, I would have been way more bullish that the dollar will go to like, I don't know, 105, 110, whatever, sky's the limit. But because we had to come back from 94 and maybe even from down from 92 at one point just this year, I think it's a pretty big move. So I'm not yet ready to call one of these. Not ready to do it yet. It's coming, but maybe not. Maybe not this year. The market is still a little nervous with what Trump's going to do. So I'm a little bit hesitant, but I do expect this future of the green box to happen again. So I am expecting the dollar to go to like 120, 125, who knows, maybe even 200. I'm very, very bullish on the dollar. And I know a lot of people will disagree, but when the euro collapses, you will all, assume it. To me, the euro has already failed, but I guess to some it hasn't. But when it fails and everyone realizes that it failed, then people might see what I see in the US dollar. Okay, what do we got? All right, let's stick with currency, British pound. All right, I'm going to say this again. I'm ignoring this. This is, I don't know what the hell this was. I don't really trade currencies. I don't know. I don't want to know. This is why you take on small positions and ignore intraday insanity. So because I'm ignoring this, what I had said for a little while now, ever since this happened, I said the British pound is way oversold. Even though the Brexit may or may not happen, it doesn't matter. Britain is starting to see independence. They are in much better position. I was bullish the British pound, but to a point. I'm bullish the British pound, but I'm way more bullish the US dollar. So as the dollar goes up, all other currency go down. But I'm bullish the British pound versus other currencies, especially the euro. I'm not really going to pull up the British pound versus the euro chart, but I'm definitely bullish the pound over the euro. And we have been going up. We came and hit the 50-day moving average right on the head. I'm pretty sure I would have said this in older videos that we're going to pull back into the 50-day. Now we're starting to fall a little bit, but I think the dollar is going to have a little bit of weakness. So I am expecting a little bit more strength in the British pound. This is my daily chart. I don't know. Let's just very quickly look at the weekly. Yeah, we got room. We can go up to 130. We can maybe go up to the 50-week. We also hit the oversold on the RSI, so there could be some room to the upside. So British pound might have a little bit of life in it left. Now let's talk about what has no life in it left, and that's the euro. I mean, the euro is just a basket case. I'm not even going to look at the daily chart of the euro. It would go like straight down. It's the weekly chart of the euro. I'm going to, I don't know. Anyone can be watching this for the first time. This is what the euro is going to do. If there was a way for me to draw the euro into a negative territory, I absolutely would. The euro is going to fall apart. The euro is a complete disaster. And once we finally go below the and close below 1.05, there will be like, I don't know, one life left, and that's the parity. And once we go below parity, all confidence will be lost, and it's going to be like Zimbabwe over there. They're not going to be able to print fast enough. No, I'm kidding, of course, but countries are going to be dropping out of that zone like flies. It's just complete nonsense over there. That's my view on the euro. All right. And finally, I don't know, I haven't talked about Canadian dollar like ever, but I don't think Canadian dollar will ever see parity with the US dollar again, probably ever. and the Canadian dollar will continue to slowly devalue. Oh man, I probably should have gone to Canada. I'm not going to Canada in the middle of the winter. I just made that mistake in Russia. I don't like the cold, and it was snowing there way earlier than normal, but it was below freezing when I got there in early November. So I have no intention of going to Canada in February. But I usually go to Canada in the summer, and I remember I went there in the summer of 2014, and it was like just over $1. And then me and my friends go back there the following summer, and I'm like, what the hell? It's now $1.30, and now we're back to $1.35. And my future for the Canadian dollar, I really should draw a red line here because it's going to devalue against the US dollar, and we'll probably be hitting 1.5 and probably sometime next year. Now that we're above the 50-day, it's not going to be looking good. So I'm not very bullish on the Canadian dollar. Oh, I forgot to do my see what we got here. Trading view. You know, I forgot something. I forgot to talk about Bitcoin. Let's see. Oh man, I can't even spell. All right, let's log into trading view real quick. Let's take a look at Bitcoin. Thought I was prepared. Totally forgot about Bitcoin again. I try to forget about Bitcoin on purpose. I know I talk about Bitcoin all the time. I'm a Bitcoin person, but as far as like the price of Bitcoin and Bitcoin itself, I try to forget about it as much as I can. I try to keep the few Bitcoin that I have away from myself, because nothing good ever happens when I have access to my own Bitcoin. I either invest them stupidly or try to trade them instead of doing the smart thing and just hiding them from myself and making sure I don't forget any of my passwords. Let me see. This is not the chart I want to look at. Let's see. Let's open up a different chart. Bitcoin liquid, daily short term. Let's look at this. All right, come on, load. All right, here we go. This is better. Okay, so what I've been saying was that I was looking for a bit of a head and shoulders over here and over here. And then I expected a bit of a pullback. I keep getting my pullbacks, but they're just not going low enough. I've made this mistake so many times. I always think Bitcoin is going to pull back further than it does, and then it just doesn't. So fell down as low as 670, and then it started falling again the other day down to about 685. And this is on a 1 day's delay, guys. I know we're back to about 740 area, and I would love for it to like stay here in this area a little bit. And I understand that the price is going up, but look, your momentum, your MACD is still going down. Your RSI is still going down. Your momentum is telling you that there's not much strength there, right? So I'm still a bit hesitant. I mean, it needs to break out of the 750 area with a vengeance, and really hit some kind of a euphoria. I mean, India, right now we're probably going to go up on speculation from India. As you know, India is removing its big notes of 500 and 1,000. Now, in reality, a 500 note is about $8 US. So a $1,000 note is about $16 US. So it's ridiculous that those are considered big notes. I mean, in America, a $100 bill is considered big notes, and that's also, I think, kind of ridiculous. People don't realize that 100 years ago, we had $10,000 notes in the US, back when a dollar was actually worth something. But so they're considering those big bills. So it's not even the speculation in India, it's the speculation from the speculators reading the news about India, because the Indian market is still not that big on Bitcoin. But again, we are repeating this pattern right here. And this took how many months? From about December all the way to the summer. And the halving had a lot to do with this. So we had a catalyst to break us out. And look how many attempts we had coming close to this red line. This is only our first attempt at this red line. So I would not be surprised at all if this takes another 3 to 4 months before we finally break out. But hey, if we break out, we break out. I am bullish Bitcoin into the following summer. I mean, we really need SegWit. I mean, SegWit is very important. I'm very upset at people that are trying to bring down Bitcoin by being against SegWit. So we really need SegWit. Bitcoin needs to properly and responsibly to scale, and then we'll be good, and we'll be all set for the future. So I'm still a little hesitant on calling Bitcoin to break out to the upside. If you would have caught me over here when the RSI was oversold, I would have been way more bullish Bitcoin down in this area. I wasn't making these videos then. Also, when we were making this triangle, I would have been bullish Bitcoin. But right now, I'm neutral to slightly bearish. Again, it's Bitcoin. It can break out any minute. I'm being informed that Bitcoin is at 770 right now, which I'm actually going to check that, because that would be very impressive. Because it's still 740 on my phone, and it's still 740 on my phone. Bitstamp, unless I'm behind. I don't know what exchanges people are looking at. In China, it's 770. Yeah, but if you're cherry picking exchanges, that is, I mean, that's rough, because in India right now, it's over 800, right? So, I mean, if you want to buy Bitcoin in India, and if I was in India, I'd be selling Bitcoin for about 900. I wouldn't be selling them that cheap. My view on the price of Bitcoin, actually, my price of Bitcoin is about 900 right now. I send out a monthly update on the price of Bitcoin. I take the market cap of all altcoins, including Bitcoin combined, and I divide that by the number of Bitcoins outstanding. That is my price for Bitcoin, because I think every altcoin is going to zero eventually, and all that money is going to move back into Bitcoin where it belongs. So my price of Bitcoin is different. So my price of Bitcoin is probably around 850 right now. I'll be doing the math at the end of the month and sending that out. Okay, let me briefly look at some questions. Oh, that's a good question. Did I bet on Trump to win? No, and that's because I'm an idiot. I should have bet on Trump to win like a year ago when he first announced he was going to run. I should have bet on Trump when people telling me that the odds were 7-1. I should have bet on Trump the day of the election, when everybody and their mother were predicting a 90% chance of Hillary winning, and the odds were unbelievable towards Trump. I try not to gamble. I have very terrible success at gambling. I used to gamble back in college a little bit. I even had like a project for my master's financial thesis involving gambling. And I try not to gamble. I think I have like the worst luck. If I bet on Trump, he probably would have lost. So in a way, it sucks. I missed out on good winnings. But you know what? I'd rather have Trump in there than Hillary. And if I didn't win a bet, I don't have a problem with that. So I don't regret not betting on it. But no, I did not bet on Trump. Let me glance if there's any other questions. Someone disagreed with me about oil. I disagree on your opinion on oil. No oil civilization will end. Oil cannot be replaced. Oil can absolutely be replaced. I'm sure that's what they said about whale oil back in the mid 1800s, before they found the use for petroleum oil. Oil can be replaced. I have no doubt in my mind. And it will be replaced, because it has to be replaced. Otherwise, we all die. I mean, we evolve, technology evolves, all these resources are finite. I mean, try not to cut down every tree so we have some air to breathe, but the more carbon dioxide we put into the air, the more trees will grow, because that's oxygen for the trees. So the planet will balance itself out. Yes, oil is in everything now, but oil is not going to be in everything forever. Replacements will be created. I'm a believer in technology. I'm sure there'll be a better substitute for plastic in the future as well. Don't underestimate human innovation. don't underestimate human knowledge. Human knowledge doubles insanely quickly. I think it doubles every few months these days, and that's only speeding up. Um, all right. Anything else? All right, guys. So on that note, I am going to. I'm gonna call it a night. Good luck trading. Good luck tomorrow. Good luck the rest of the week, and I see you all over the weekend.